Hey there, Alex Kidman here with my very quick review of these, the Ugreen Slim Smart Finder, this one, and the Ugreen Smart Finder, this one. This one's slightly cheaper, this one's slightly more expensive, but the key selling point for these particular trackers is that they're cheaper than this one. So this is just your standard classic Apple AirTag. Here in Australia, runs you around $49. The Slim Smart Tracker here will cost you about $43 to $46, depending on who you buy it from. And the little smart finder here will run you around $26 to $29. Again, the pricing varies over time and depending on who you buy it through, but that's what I'm seeing at retail at the moment. And like the AirTags, these are tracking devices. They work with Apple's Find My network, although obviously there are a few key differences. So the closest comparison here is the little smart finder here because it runs off most of the same principles, but with a slightly different design. I do like the fact there's a loop there so you can attach it to stuff. It runs off a CR2032 battery, same as the AirTag. But the Slim Smart Finder, well, there ain't no space on that thing for a 2032 battery. It's got an embedded lithium-ion battery in it instead. Now, in terms of finding, I've been testing these out. They run on Apple's Find My network because that is actually open to third-party trackers like these. And, well, there's some good news and some bad news. Obviously, these are cheaper. That is the key thing. And they do work. You just register them as other devices, other items within the Find My app on an iPhone or an iPad or what have you, and they will show up as part of those details. However, while I have tested them up against AirTags in the same environments, I'm not going to go into too much details around those because it's actually my own personal spaces and privacy is a concern here. But look, they have worked exactly as well as the AirTags for basic map finding. So these are basic Bluetooth trackers, but there is a caveat here. And the caveat is that these don't support, or don't appear to support, the ultra wideband support that you need for precision finding. So you just get a basic map version. So, for example, here's me finding it in the center of Sydney. And yeah, I haven't gone for the most inventive name there, but you get the point. It'll tell you roughly where they are. You don't get that nice precise finding where it says, it's 3 meters to your left with an arrow that you do with a full AirTag. The other thing you don't get, although this is not unique to these Ugreen models, I really only discovered it while testing it though, is if you're accessing Find My via the web, you actually don't get access to these at all, but you don't get access to AirTags either. Apple's made that decision to say, no, if it's an iPhone or an iPad or whatever, you can find it via Find My on the web, but if it's a tag or tracker, you cannot. So that seems to be across the board. One other interesting point of difference here is they actually play a slightly different, slightly higher pitched tune. I'll get the smaller smart tracker just to make its noise now. Hopefully the microphone will pick it up reasonably well. Yeah, I don't think you're going to miss that. It's actually slightly sharper than the tone you get out of the classic AirTag. So that's actually a bit of a plus. In terms of battery life, Ugreen rates the smaller smart finder as being good for up to 2 years off a CR2032 battery, while it rates the thin smart finder as being good for up to 12 months. Now, I've not had them anywhere near that long, and Apple's own battery measurement thing within Find My is nowhere near precise enough for me to say, yes, they'll last the distance. I mean, they've done fine so far, but it would take way too long to actually test out and give you any kind of real comparative figures there. They seem fine. There's a couple of interesting differences, though, with the batteries for either of them. Let's tackle the smaller smart tracker first. So it uses a CR2032 battery, but it seals it in much tighter. The little pin release inside the lanyard loop there, and you then pop the top. I'm not actually going to do that because it's a real sod to do. It's really quite hard to do. We'd be here all day. Now, in one sense, that's really good because there is an issue with battery safety in kids around these kinds of things. Kids swallowing CR232 batteries is a real thing. It's a real danger, and it's something that I don't believe Apple has really redesigned the AirTags since that first gen. This is a first generation one. If they have made a big internal change that I'm not aware of, let me know in the comments below. But these are not that difficult to get the battery out of, which is a bit of a problem for small children. This is a real sod, which great for the kids. That's actually very important, but it does mean when you come to change the battery, you're probably going to struggle to do so. I know I have. Not that I've needed to change the battery, but I've struggled just to expose the battery. Now, ordinarily, that would mean that I'd say, right, we'll go the slim smart finder, even though it's more expensive because it's rechargeable, and rechargeable is a whole lot easier, right? Well, yes and no. So rechargeable is kind of nice, except that, well, there's no space, of course, for like a USB port on this particular card. And instead, what you're actually talking about is, well, this cable with this incredibly small, the camera may or may not pick it up, little magnetic pin adapter that just clamps on there. You can see that there. Now, that works. It charges it. It's fine. But, well, my concern here is that this is such a custom cable. If it breaks, if you lose it, and let's face it, if you're only using it once every 12 months, the odds are high it's just going to end up in a pile of cables and you're not going to know which one, or you're not going to be able to find it when this thing goes flat. And at that point, well, unfortunately, this is going to be just so much e-waste. So should you buy the Ugreen Smart Finder? Well, look, I think there's a stronger case for the smaller one as long as you don't need precision finding. It's about half the price of an AirTag with most of the features. The Slim, I think, is a much harder sell unless you really need something that's kind of business card size to fit into, I don't know, the side of a wallet or something like that, just because the rechargeable nature of it is kind of neat, but I just feel like that cable's going to break or you're going to lose the cable and then you're living on borrowed time.